Hi guys, okay, continuing with the percussion revolver Thursday, let's talk about front sights. Okay, let's go back and look at when Colt brought forth the Patterson and the later on 51, etc., why he chose the sights that he did. First, at the time that Colt was developing this idea, and in the late 1820s, early 1830s, dueling was still a thing here in the United States and abroad. It had been outlawed in many places, but it was still a thing. And that's where we get the idea from the old Western movies of the two guys walking out of the saloon, getting out in the street, and lining up, and then pulling, fast draw. No. In dueling, it was an organized event, and you had seconds and observers and referees, and y'all would get out there and take these pistols and get back to back and pace so many paces, turn and fire at each other. And most of those guns, if not all of those guns, were smooth bore. So like a little shotgun. And they didn't have a rear sight. It just had a blade. And many of the dueling pistols didn't even have a front sight. That was considered unsporting. That was cheating. It was as much kind of like flipping a coin, that y'all were going to turn and snap shoot at each other, and whether you got hit or not. You weren't trying to kill him, you were just trying to hurt him. See? Because that'd be murder. If he did die, well, that was an act of God. And so that was kind of like the mindset of it. So when Colt first came out with the Patterson, it had that itty bitty cone on the front, that little bead. That was very much it, because the idea of this gun as a personal defense handgun was going to be relatively close range, 20-25 yards, and you were snapping a shot at someone. That would be murder to take deliberate, calculated aim and pull the trigger. No, you just, in the fit of anger, snapped. So the sights kind of reflected that. That little notch in the back of the hammer of a Colt was adequate, but was not really conducive to good accuracy like we know today. And so when you look at the guns that came up then, we're going to use this Spiller and Burr. It's just a little bitty cone front side, a little bead. It's just a little point right there in the middle of it that's being used as a reference point. The rear sight is a fixed rear sight, non-adjustable. With the Colt design, you had the notch in the hammer, which was used as a reference point there and then a reference point here. They were very much shooting by instinct, very much in their mind understanding the trajectory, much like you shoot a shotgun today for skeet, of leading your target and aiming. In Elmer Keith's book, Six Guns, he relays a story of a Confederate officer and a Union officer. The Union officer had taken the Confederate officer prisoners and was escorting him to the rear. Whenever he came upon a group of Yankee soldiers in this thicket trying to catch a couple of hogs that had got loose from somebody's farm, and they wanted them for food. And so as they're rustling around, one of the hogs ran out in front of the Union officer, and he snapshot at it, hit the hog right behind the ear, and killed it with his 36 51 Navy. And then a second hog ran out, and he snapshot and killed that one as well. They were trained, instinctive shooters by then. You knew where the bullet was going. You didn't need sights. You just shot enough, you knew where it went. Hand-eye coordination. If you have to aim, it's too far away. These guys were experts. And because of that, when we inherit this design of these sights, it can be a little bit of a handicap, because we're from an era where you have good sights on a handgun, and therefore you have a blade up here and an adjustable rear sight that we can put wider notches in or change out the sights to better fit our eyes. These were not set up for that. And so there are a couple of advantages and disadvantages to them. One, once they're set, they're locked. You don't have to worry about them going astray unless the gun becomes damaged. There's never going to be a screw or a bouncing or a jiggling cause them to get out of whack. Once they're sighted in, they're fixed. Okay. with a given load and a given set. Now, the Remington has the blade. Now, many of these are rounded over in the top. I flat topped mine for a modern sight picture. And the Remington, to me, is the easiest to shoot for our modern eyes because the fixed rear sight, and then you can flat top this blade, and it gives you very much a modern type of sight system. And so it's easier for us out of the box to learn to shoot one of the Remingtons because of that, because the sights do actually give it an advantage. That rear notch on the Remington is a little more open and easier to see, and the front sight is much more clear blade up there. But let's talk about that blade. Here on the Colt, you can see I put a modification into it. See that notch right there in the back? The problem with a rounded over sight, and you see this on many of the guns that came out in the 1800s all the way up until the 1900s. They were like a half a nickel, half moon up there. Well, the problem with that is that surface right there reflects light, and you see how broad that is. Now, what that means in English is you're sighting down this way. If the light is coming straight down this way, you see the brightness up here. If the light is coming this way, this side of this thing will shine more. If the light is coming this way, this thing will shine more. So as you look through that sight and the light is changing, the reflective edge is moving, is changing by the way that I turn. So I get up there and I go to shoot, and my light is coming from my left, nice bright morning, and I bring up that nice shiny blade and I shoot, and all of my shots are going to the right. Why? The left side of that sight is shinier, and I'm putting it in the middle of the thing because I can see it better. The light is coming from the right to the left. I suddenly go to shooting to the left because I've inadvertently will move. If the light is coming directly behind me or directly at me or these angles, that reflectiveness messes us up. And so what I do to counteract that is I cut a little notch with a file in the back of that sight to make it more like a modern partridge. I want it slightly, not flat, but slightly undercut. That way I'm looking at here, almost at a shadow. And the light, no matter which way it comes, is not going to make this, unless I'm aiming severely downhill, is going to make this brighter. So it's a nice, good, easily picked up sight, and it doesn't change points of impact for me as easily. Okay. Now, one of the worst ones is the 51 Navy and the other models that have this little cone front sight on them, because that is just a rounded ball up there. And no matter which way the light is coming, it looks different from a different angle. Okay? And you can see this when you go looking at reports of target shooters that are, shooting for serious in the 1800s in competitions about how the sights were the limitation. A gross sight, a big, broad, easily picked up sight is very fast for shooting, for that snap shooting, remember we were talking about? But it is so coarse, it's hard to get fine accuracy out of it. The designers of these guns wanted fine accuracy, so they made such small, tiny sights. Now, with practice, lots of practice, those sights could be more than adequate. As I mentioned about the cavalry officer who was snap shooting a running hog behind the ear at a dead run and planting the ball exactly where he wanted to sever the spine from the base of the skull. It's a lot of work to get that well. It becomes more like Zen, like a skeet shooter shooting at a flying target, as opposed to a target shooter, one who is trying to precisely line up sights. So what can we do today? If the sight is rounded, I flat it on top. Just the part that looks at me, I'll make sure it's square, and I'll flat it a little bit with a file. Normally don't take just a couple of strokes. If it is like an 1860 or 61 or something that has a blade on it, I will square off the back of the blade, and then I will slightly undercut it. Now on the Remington, I've done that as well. You see, I have flat topped that blade, and then I have squared off the back side that faces me with the file. So it's flat. So I got a nice flat post sitting up there, easy for my eyes to pick up. This improves accuracy because it allows me to have a more precise sight. I'm trying to get as much accuracy out of these guns as I can because I'm not just going out for fun just to shoot plates or targets. That's fine. If that's your entire intent, no modifications necessary. Go out and enjoy it. Just point and pull the trigger. I had a friend for many, many years that a 10-inch circle was more than adequate to him. If he could walk up to a target at 25 yards and hit inside of a 10-inch circle, he was happy. That was fine. I wanted to shoot rabbits and things with it, so I wanted more precise aiming. And I carried it in the field as a woods gun, so I wanted to be able to shoot a snake and humanely dispatch the animal quickly and cleanly without having this gross sighting, you know. So, in conclusion, if you would like to modify your sights, flat top it, flat the back looking at you, and undercut it slightly. If it is a round post like a 51, Navy, or etc., I have showed that in my earlier video when I was talking about accurizing percussion revolvers. I have taken a file and kind of flattened on both sides and the back of that bead to make it like a three-sided square, like that. So the square is facing back toward me. See, this be the part facing me. I take a file and flat it, flat it, flat it, flat it on the top, so it's a square post. From me looking at it, from you looking at it from the side, it's still a rounded bead, but from looking at it from the back, now I've got a squarish sight and more precise for aiming. Either one of those will greatly improve your accuracy and hopefully get your groups to shrink a great deal. Hope you enjoyed this, guys. Please leave any questions or comments below, and do me a favor and hit that like, share, and subscribe button before you go. Till next time, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.